Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Tech and Security podcast, Bridging the Divide. We're joined today by Rolf Ruzicka, and I probably pronounced your last name wrong. You
Everyone
can correct
does.
me. But yeah, I'm sorry for butchering your name. It's again for people listening in or viewing in. It's a new podcast. I'm still trying to figure this out. It's a video podcast, so bear with me. Um, I think last episode we did it with Kevin Fielder, who's a CISO, but also fulfilling a technical security leader, a technical leader function as well. And Wolf, I wanted to bring on, and he volunteered as well. He's like, oh yeah, let me get into this, because he does lots of things in AI as well, and we've been connected for years.
Years.
I forgot the count, to be honest.
Well, you were a
Um,
youngster back then.
Yes, I was still young back then. Now I'm slightly older. But yeah, Wolf, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can be short. So Wolf Ruzicka, based in Washington, D.C. According to the internet, I am a citizen of the world, so I lived and worked everywhere. I sit on 12 boards as of last week. All of those typically are enterprise tech startup companies, sometimes a bit bigger. Most of them are in AI. Most of those are in generative AI. I have 9 exits under my belt, actively invested in 3 startup companies. And my day job is to provide strategic advice to very large companies, and particularly the C-suite there, on how to think about AI and make it actionable.
That's a brilliant intro. I'm not going to even do my intro. I'm Mark. I'm a security leader. You all know this. But yeah, like I said, I'm interviewing people like Wolf because I just want to get the conversation going and basically bring leaders like Wolf together, and as a security leaders, bring the conversation together so we can work better together. That's all we need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you mentioned it, your Washington DC. For some of the listeners, you might know or might not know. I do have a bit of a soft spot for DC. I spent some 3 months only, unfortunately, working in a DMV. Still think fondly of it. Sometimes I dream that I move to Georgetown and I can
Which
afford
is where I
some
am right
nice.
now.
Oh wow! Okay, I'm not jealous at all, but slightly jealous. One day I'll get there. But yeah, thank you again for coming.
Of course.
Yeah, so the premise of the podcast again is basically to bring conversation between security leaders and technology leaders together, and then of course there's an AI angle, which is also why I was like, oh yeah, I would love to have you on. Um, is that security, of course, in the past was a department of no. You basically went like no, 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 and basically
Mm-hmm.
every security practitioner was going like petitioner was going like, well, your organization, it might not be Fort Knox, but I want you to treat the organization as Fort Knox and do everything gold plated. And it's like, well, if you do everything gold plated, then we don't have a business left. Because if you
Correct.
say no to everything, then we can't do anything. And it's something that this is also why I want to do this podcast. Is that like AI is kind of like upending everything here, where it's making I don't know, and I'm not a influencer whatsoever, but people are talking about like the new startups, like having a founder that basically using AI doesn't need a team of 100 anymore. They can literally have a team of 3-4 people, and then build a massive company and build a unicorn using AI. And yeah, so that's my first question to you. Like, considering, like the times we're in, there are some challenges. I'm not going to go into politics. I'm trying to avoid that for this one.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Um,
you.
but yeah, it's just for this, like, what do you think like the opportunities are in general for the world? Like with generative AI beyond, hey, it helped me write, some novel or something.
Yeah,
Um, that's my
you got
first
it.
question. Like, what's where do you see the opportunity? Like, and where do you see also potential risks?
Well, going to the Department of No, with everything being gold plated. In our book, Victor and I were writing that, especially in the AI world, perfection is the worst enemy of progress. You have to focus on progress and not on perfection, and constantly iterate, around that, whatever the findings are. But there you iterate in real time so that you keep moving and hopefully get to a gold-plated end result over time, because the context of whatever it is that you're building constantly changes. And so to strive for gold-plated results is just is a fool's errand. So
Yes.
if we're talking just about generative AI, where I see the biggest opportunity, and I think this is the year where we all have to absolutely focus on it, is think of it like a Superman logo, and on the top of the logo are the consumers, the people like you and me that take advantage of generative AI, or may not even be aware that generative AI is in our world. And at the bottom of the Superman logo is fundamental science like mathematics and so on. On top of science is the kinds of platforms, experimental science that we sometimes see emerging and then sometimes disappearing. This could be, Transformers. Transformers was experimental science. It turned out to be a really great,
Yes.
development on
Yes.
top of fundamental science. And on top of these experimental science experiments, we now observe platforms. Platforms are OpenAI, TensorFlow, you name it, lots of them. Let them, the way I talk about this to C-level people is let them fight it out. They have, endless amounts of budgets, capital. They have incredible, amounts of team members, and on it goes. It's, again, not advisable for one of the big organizations or a startup, unless they are just extremely lucky, to enter the fray at that level. But then
Yeah.
remember, and you were just talking about it, that we use generative AI to help us word something better or whatever it may be. We're thinking about it in, creating a narrative. Large language models speak to us through words. And how did we get, so into that
Yeah.
chat level of a discussion, with the genius move that OpenAI, on top of their generative AI that they had been doing for years, we were one of the earlier adopters. One day they closed the gap between the platform and the top of the Superman level with one application, a chatbot. But what I think we all have to focus on, be it startups, be it you, be it me, be it the large enterprises, is other applications and other AI systems on top of these platforms. Those are not very expensive to build. They can be
Yeah.
built fast. And chat is just one iteration of those. We have lots of examples out there where you don't see a chat interface coming out of my team, yet you still see generative AI emerging on public websites, e-commerce sites, inside of
Yeah.
organizations. And so these apps is where the big money lies and where the big opportunities lie, my opinion.
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. And then what's interesting as well, you talked about transformers as well, and of course, again, I don't need to teach you anything. You know this better than me.
Yeah,
But like reasoning models as well, which is like a new level. Whereas that's why I said like first we were helping it write a better reply to an email, and now it's like hey I'm trying to do this, and I've been playing myself. I call it playing because I'm very mindful that I want to make myself clear that I'm not an AI expert in any means. But I've been playing with cursor and such, and
good.
then going and I've been playing with something called Spark, which you might know about,
Mm-hmm.
which is something made by a Canadian guy called Reuven Cohen, and using Markdown files, basically specifying and then feeding that in, and then basically reasoning models on top, and
Mm-hmm.
AI IDs, and like hey, you built me this app, and it's quite crazy. Um, I think the weird part is like this is like my challenge, and I think it's something that other enterprises also might have. They might just say like there's so much opportunity. What do I focus on? So
Of course.
my question for you as well, like like if you were talking to an organization and they were basically they were doing a bit of chat GPT, but that and maybe a chatbot,
Mm-hmm.
what you say, like what would be questions you would ask them to say, hey, what, these are the questions you need to answer to figure out what you should be focusing on when it comes to AI/Gen AI.
Yeah. So keep in mind, and you may have read it on LinkedIn, but I really feel generative AI and AI, particularly, the broader field, is the third transformational event in human history. Third, it's not the internet or mobile, whatever. It's really transformational. So if transformation is the name of the game, then where do you transform? You don't transform somewhere in the corner of your office, and you don't
No.
transform your company, in an ideation lab or an innovation lab, these chief
Yeah.
innovation officers. It has to be part of the entire spectrum of executives
Yes.
that are part of your company. So where does that lead us? Where do all of these, lines converge inside of an organization? Is the core of an organization. So you need to start thinking about the core of your company. What makes you you, and where does it typically make sense to attach generative AI on top of structured data, AI on these 80% of your enterprise data that are unstructured, but always in the core, not somewhere on the sidelines. So then the question to ask is, what is a system and what is a set of processes that make you you? So if we take,
Yeah.
Lloyd's in London, just to be close to you, what makes Lloyd's Lloyd's? There's
Yeah.
many insurance companies, many reinsurance companies, but each one of them has their own, secret sauce. Find that secret sauce, articulate it, and move that core system towards an AI-powered
Yes.
system. That doesn't mean that every process has to have AI embedded into it, or every management system has to have AI embedded into it. But the closer you can get it to the core, the more
Yeah.
transformative it will be and beneficial to you.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like for instance, like in the past, for instance, I did work for GlaxoSmithKline, and for instance, for them, like you probably know this as well. Medicine research is very expensive, very labor intensive. Of course,
Yep.
don't get me wrong; they were already doing data science. They were doing the massive data lakes and such. But of course, I haven't been there recently. Just to be clear, but they're also going to be obviously using like AI and going like, hey, how can we speed up research and such,
Absolutely.
get quicker access to focus groups and such. And I think this is where I'm excited as well about, is that it lowers the innovation barrier for every organization, because like in the past, you might go like, hey, I bring a big four in and they're gonna, give me a fancy slide deck and then tell me the obvious, and then I still have to do all of the work. And now you can, instead of like having, like you said, an innovation lab that's sitting in the corner of a building, not really connected to business, you can basically give everyone a bit of time. And what I've been thinking about myself is like, doing something like giving departments like focus hours or something, or innovation hours, and then basically going like, hey, you all get like X amount of hours per month to do, to think differently, if you will.
I'm not sure it's
Um,
such a good model, because
yeah,
you can't do innovation by decree. Like, here's 2 hours,
yeah,
now go innovate.
yeah,
The it should be part of everyone's daily life. If I'm the chief
yeah,
information officer, I
yeah.
can't outsource the AI work to a chief AI officer. I'm a
No,
huge,
no, no, no.
proponent of these things have to be part of existing job descriptions. The CEO he or she has the obligation to understand what AI is, what it can and can't do. They don't have to take it down to the level of a data scientist, but they have to think
Mm,
like a chief executive officer who's articulate with AI superpowers. So,
yeah,
typically when I go to these board meetings or leadership meetings, and they may have a list of, ideas where to apply AI, and literally, 75% of them are not AI ideas. They're still great ideas, and
yeah,
they have
yeah,
something to do with, accelerating the company, transforming the
yeah,
company, creating alternative revenue streams. But 25% of them are
mm,
truly ingenious generative AI ideas. And so,
yeah,
understanding where to draw the line, because this is a very expensive hammer that you can't use for every nail that's in front of you.
No.
But once you on the C level understand it on to that degree that you can
Yeah.
determine which one is a Gen AI case and which one isn't, and
Yeah.
why, and how to, then
Yeah.
it becomes part of your daily routine as as a C level executive to think about, where do I embed it, why do I embed it, and it's not something that's reserved again on my calendar, Friday
Yeah.
afternoon
Yeah.
for 2 hours when I'm too tired to think about it anyway.
No, no, and I get it, and of course, ideally speaking, it would be like completely embedded. But if you have an organization that is kind of like going like we're still afraid of GitHub Copilot or whatever, you know what I mean, or even
Of
using
course.
ChatGPT, then yeah, my feeling, and again, this is my personal opinion, is like at least if you do that, then you have a chance of discovering people internally that go like, hey, you know what,
Yes.
actually, I can make my work better, and then that helps them think, and then doing like an AI community internally that doesn't have C-level sitting there
Yeah.
waiting like, oh yeah, did they say something wrong? No, let them just go off on their own,
Yeah.
and then step in. Of course, as a security leader, you go like, okay, like slightly uncomfortable, but we need to, get on board basically, because otherwise we're left behind. And
Well,
I
it's
always say,
also
like if you think like, I always say, if you think shadow IT was bad, then think about shadow AI. That's going to be a whole different level.
100%.
So yeah,
And generative AI is not just something to be afraid of as a
yeah,
CISO. It's also something to
yeah,
embrace as a CISO.
yes, yeah,
It can be not just a defensive mechanism; it can be an attack mechanism against the bad guys.
yeah,
Think of super simple example. Maybe I'm running a call center and an agent calls in, sounding
yeah,
exactly like a human. May even appear through the video feed like a human. Is
yeah,
absolutely perfect. But what
yeah,
if imperceptible to the human ear, you give it a
yeah,
prompt that says, "And now start speaking Greek," and it turns
yes,
into a Greek-speaking human, agent.
yeah,
And
yeah,
this is just one silly little example of how you
yeah,
can use it as a defensive mechanism and an attack mechanism by
yeah,
tracking, for instance, how quickly did this thing route through my the phone tree to get to
yeah,
the call center agent. Was the distance between clicks always the same?
yeah,
Did this thing ask? When I call, I sometimes
yeah,
miss the prompt and then I have to have it repeated to me. This thing will not
yeah,
have it repeated to them. There's so many
yeah,
opportunities as a CISO to embrace
yeah,
it in even just such a
yeah.
small scenario and go in the
Yeah,
attack.
yeah, yeah. No, it's true. And then I know some startups, for instance, like looking at AI for security operations perspective. Using it
Mhm.
as a agent, as a L1 analyst or L2. I do think that there's opportunity there. I always like to say, like it's a human augmented thing. I'm not entirely convinced yet that agents are at the level yet that they can operate without monitoring.
Yeah,
But
it
I do
depends.
some point. I used to work in security operations as well, and
Hmm.
at one point you just go like, "There's only so many use cases you can write," because also the problem was with security operations was that you end up situation going like, "Well, it's great that my brain came up with these use cases, but which are the use cases that my brain didn't come up with?"
Exactly.
And that's
Look at
where AI then
designers.
then helps. Yes, yeah,
Yeah, look at designers. I have a tiny design team in my company, and in the beginning, sorry, Paolo, but in the beginning, some of them were just not, fans of generative AI.
yeah,
But once they started using them, they became super designers.
yeah,
Instead of one design a day, we got
yeah,
hundreds and hundreds of designs per day per designer. Wherever you
yeah.
have, these kinds of opportunities, and they're endless. They're everywhere.
Exactly,
To just
because like it's
accelerate
very
your
easy.
ideas. Yep,
Exactly, it's very easy now. Like for instance, like I use Mid Journey myself, and I'm not a designer, and yet I can still make stuff, and I go like
that's right.
what I used to make myself in the past. It looks amateurish, and now it looks
Yeah,
very sleek.
applies
Um,
everywhere. test cases,
exactly.
user stories,
Yeah,
acceleration.
I might be getting too technical for this podcast, but I love as well with AI, where it makes it so easy as well to get the AI to write test cases, and then you can do test-driven development because you can
Yeah,
get it to write the test cases first. It then starts writing the code, and everything turns green. You just sit there and go like, "Oh, this is really smooth."
absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I love that as well. And like I said, for cybersecurity, I think a lot of vendors. I'm sure you're having conversations as well. We're waiting for a new generation of vendors that they completely rethink how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Because yeah, not a
Well,
lot
we're
of the tooling
working,
are still
shameless self-promotion. We're working
yes,
to be that vendor that everyone
yeah.
calls, that rethinks everything around this.
Yeah, yeah, because there's so many vendors, it goes the big names, and please don't sue me if you're listening. But the big names buy a vendor, and then where it goes. The big name, they buy it, they stop development because they know that the customers, they have this threshold before they leave. So they go like, hey, if all these big customers stay with us for 3-4 years and we don't do any development, it's a cash cow, and then and then it
That's
dies, and
typically the
yeah,
that's typically the
yeah,
call I get. That I just
yeah,
dropped off from a CIO. It's a real example. I just dropped off
yeah,
$2 million at one of the big four, and all I
yeah.
got for it was AI by PowerPoint. Can you please come
Yes,
in and not give me a
exactly.
PowerPoint,
Like,
but roll up your
yeah,
sleeves and get to work?
exactly.
That's
And so show me like how to use cursor in Aider, or not to use many terms. Um, like use reasoning models, Markdown. There's so much to do. I'm not a
so much
developer,
to do.
and so if I can do it, always, like, I don't want to call myself an idiot, but if I can do it, then like that's the future. And I was thinking as well, maybe slightly on topic as well, or off
Mhm.
topic,
All good.
considering like a current like changes in society, if you will. Let's keep it to that. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think like the opportunities as well for AI to basically transform the original defense complex? You know what I mean? Because now already we have seen that drones outperform and outkill, a 20 million tank or a 100 million tank.
Yeah.
What
Well,
more do you see like happening? Yeah,
I'm not a defense expert. We
yeah,
don't
yeah,
work with the federal government here in
yeah,
Washington,
yeah,
D.C. Typically,
yeah,
it's private companies, commercial
yeah,
companies. But you just have to understand the superpowers of Gen AI. And let's
yeah,
just pick two of them. One of
yeah,
them is matching between
yeah,
two very large markets, so
yeah,
suppliers and vendors, or
yeah,
defenders and attackers, and match between those. So let's pick an e-commerce example. You're Mark, and I can
yeah,
see I am now your generative AI assistant, Mark. I can
yeah,
see that you like darker colors and
yeah,
a little bit of a splotch of color in it. Uh,
yeah,
and how about the following range of products that fit exactly your
yeah,
style according
yes,
to the weather patterns that you have in, wherever you are right now,
yeah,
and according to the occasion that you're going to go to after you hang up on me and on the podcast. That
yeah,
is matching. I'm matching a product catalog to just
yeah,
one consumer. Now I can do it on the order of millions of products to millions of
yeah.
consumers. So wherever that matching superpower is applicable in the defense complex, which is
Yeah.
many, many, many of these kinds of markets,
Exactly, because again, I used to do cleared work. I haven't done cleared work recently, but um, yeah, you can think of scenarios and go like, you have like a battleship management system that analyzes and goes like, hey, actually, no, right now in the battle, you need to send in drones, or no, you need to send in artillery because that's where your gaps are, or
that's
that's where
right.
your opportunities are.
Yeah, exactly.
So
These are
battlefield management systems, I think, definitely, are going to be disrupted. I don't know.
and
It's a
those are
fashionable word to say, but
No, you're right.
that's
And
yeah, yeah,
we didn't have to pick that industry or that field, but it is
yeah,
just one of
yeah,
many industries and many fields that are being disrupted as we speak. And this is a
yeah,
correct example. So these are,
yeah,
probabilistic technologies that say, with a certain
Yeah.
probability, this
Yeah.
weapon is the most
Mm.
appropriate for the
Mm.
probable situation that I see, emerging here within the next 3
Yeah.
minutes. That's a perfect AI example. And
Yeah.
then the
Exactly.
second
Exactly.
superpower, the
Yeah.
second superpower is process acceleration, and it was even chapter 5 in our book. We focused on one process. The process took 18 months to complete from start to finish. And it just so happened to be in the defense industry, even though we don't work in that industry. So 18 months, start to finish. Once you're finished, it's like the Golden Gate Bridge. You have to repaint it from the beginning again, and it's a never-ending cycle. Using generative, so imagine, that a process is a range of tasks. Task number
Yeah.
one that leads to task number 1A and 1B that goes to task
Yes.
number 2. So analyze the tasks that make up this 18-month process and which ones can be accelerated using generative AI. We brought the process down to 1 week, an 18-month
Nice.
process that now gets completed every single week. That's a
Nice.
superpower of generative
Yes.
AI. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so in the defense complex, there's probably no other industry that has more processes than the defense industry.
Exactly. I was going to
Endless
say. Yeah.
opportunities for Gen AI.
Exactly, exactly. So I did something as well in the past. Again, clearly I can't say much about it, but the short version is it was literally a paper process. So they basically would check for records, and they literally what the auditors would do, they literally print out stacks of paper. Like they would literally go like, "Oh, give me 2,500 records," and print it out, and then they would literally go manually and pick the random sheets from the stack and go like, yeah, the data. No, it shouldn't be in there. No, this data. And then they went to somebody else and go like, you have to fix it. The data is incorrect. So what I did, basically back in the day, was that I used and ingest the data from all the central systems using XML and whatever. And that again, that process went from a 3% hit rate or something because they
Yep.
literally did random sampling to like
Right.
a 98% hit rate or something. But
Classic
now I'm thinking
automation.
at it and then going like, well, I already got it to 98%, but now with AI, it's going to be like 99.99. You know what I mean? Like,
And it can be completed faster. So I think
yeah,
the speed advantage is really the most important thing here, because through automation you can get deterministic automation. You can get a process to be completed correctly 100% every single time. There's plenty of examples that generative AI now accelerates this.
yes, yes. And then with AI as well, for this year, of course, it's a very hot market. Lots of things happening. What are your plans and your company's plans for this year? What are you planning? I know that you're traveling, speaking everywhere,
Yeah.
but just
No,
what are you planning?
So I have this urge to get the word out, not so much
Yeah,
for creating work for my company or so. We're being flooded with work. We
yeah,
recently went from about 220 engineers to 1,000 engineers globally, and it's not going to stop. The work is just endless. So, but the nature of the work will be religiously crossing that AI chasm. So you find, especially in big corporations or in governments, this endless stream of AI experiments, but
yeah,
crossing that chasm into production systems at scale. Not many
yeah.
companies can boast about
No,
that. All of
exactly.
our customers can boast about that. And so I need to,
Yeah, yeah,
as far as the work is concerned, we will continue focusing on crossing that chasm on behalf of our clients. And then internally,
yeah,
we've literally infused our entire software development lifecycle with all kinds of AI tools, not just experimenting with it, but really
yeah,
using it to multiply. You're being voice bombed. That's awesome. Who is it?
yeah, yeah.
Who is it
Oh,
behind you?
it's my little one.
Hi, little
It's
one.
yeah.
That's great.
She didn't get in, but yeah. She likes joining meetings, unfortunately.
I love it. No, it's great. We're all
I
humans.
got I got a 6 and a 9-year-old, two daughters. So I'm a girl dad.
Beautiful.
but yes. Again, you're in Georgetown. Sorry, people. I'm really jealous. It's still a goal. It's still a goal of me to be in Georgetown. But yeah.
Well, you're invited anytime you want.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I do have to find an excuse. As you might see, I'm actually a very sad fan of the Washington Wizards because we're really bad.
For a
Although
very
we're
long
now,
time already.
yes, for a very long time. But we're not last in the league ranking now, apparently, because we beat the Hornets. Yay! But yeah, my plan is to come over to DC at one point and catch a game as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just I guess question I have, and I always enter with this question, is that if you had a magic wand, what would you change?
If I had a magic wand, I would turn myself into the Silver Surfer so I can surf through the entire universe and explore all these planets and save them from the monster that's coming behind me, trying to eat them.
Okay,
It's always been my favorite superhero is the Silver Surfer. You know, he's slick.
Yeah.
He has this sad love that goes along with him, but he keeps on powering through it. He's very wise, and it's always been my favorite superhero. So I want to be the Silver Surfer, please, Mark. Can you give me that one?
Nice. Yes. I'll send it over via mail.
Awesome.
It is definitely a unique answer. So I'll give you that. There will probably end up a quote for the podcast. But yeah, no, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Same, Mark.
Again, I hope it was enjoyable for you as well.
It was.
And for people tuning in, please do tune in for next episode. I do have another booking, but I'm talking to lots of people. Recommendations always are welcome. But yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you, Wolf. And let's keep in touch. And let's AI everything this year.
Not everything, just about a quarter of the use cases.
Yes, something like that. Yes.
Perfect.
Where AI makes sense. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you, and
of course.
we'll speak again.